In a small town in Texas, fear rules the streets. Black motorcycles roar through the night, and people lock their doors before sunset. No one dares to fight back because the motorcycle gang owns everything: law, money, and lives. Then one day a stranger arrives. He is quiet, bald, strong. He does not ask questions. He does not run. The gang watches him from the shadows, unaware that this man carries a past soaked in blood. They think he is just passing through. They are wrong. How did the story unfold? Watch the full story in this video. The hot sun of Texas was slowly rising above the dry hills. The air felt heavy and the sound of insects filled the quiet morning. Deep inside a wide forest near West Texas, 3 men were hunting deer. They wore old jackets, carried rifles, and moved carefully between the trees. The leader of the group was Dale Cooper, a tall man in his late 40s. He had a hard face and cold eyes. The other 2 men followed him closely, trusting his experience. They had hunted together many times before. Suddenly, a deer ran past them, fast and strong. "There!" Dale shouted. Without thinking too long, Dale chased after the deer. He moved faster and faster, going deeper into the forest. The trees became thicker and the ground more uneven. After a few minutes, he stopped to catch his breath. Dale looked around. The other 2 men were gone. "Damn it," he muttered. The forest was quiet now. Too quiet. Dale adjusted his rifle and continued walking, unaware that he was no longer the hunter. He was the target. From behind the trees, a large man watched him closely. His head was shaved, his body strong and solid like stone. His name was Ryan Walker. He had been tracking Dale for days. Every step Dale took had already been planned. Ryan's eyes were calm, but inside his heart burned with old pain. This was not a random killing. This was revenge. Ryan stepped on a dry branch. Crack. Dale turned around quickly and raised his rifle. "Who's there?" he shouted. Before Dale could react, Ryan rushed forward. The rifle fell to the ground. The 2 men struggled, crashing into the dirt. Dale tried to fight back, but Ryan was stronger. Ryan grabbed Dale by the neck and slammed him against a tree. "Do you remember a house in East Texas?" Ryan asked in a low voice. Dale's eyes widened. "I don't know what you're talking about," Dale replied, shaking. Ryan tightened his grip. "A birthday party," Ryan continued. "A wife. A little girl. A little boy." Dale's face turned pale. "Please," Dale whispered. Ryan did not hesitate. With one powerful move, he ended Dale's life. The forest returned to silence as if nothing had happened. Ryan stepped back and looked at the body on the ground. There was no joy on his face, only emptiness. Years ago, Ryan Walker had been a police officer in Texas. He loved his job. He believed in the law. He believed in protecting people. But one night, everything was taken from him. A criminal gang, angry at the police, attacked his home. They killed his wife. They killed his children. Ryan survived, barely alive, lying in his own blood. The men responsible were never fully punished. Dale Cooper was one of them. Now, one name had been crossed off Ryan's list. Ryan left the forest and walked toward his black pickup truck. He did not look back. Later that day, Ryan drove along a long Texas highway. The road stretched far into the distance. Dry land, old fences, and broken signs passed by his window. His destination was a small town called Hope Creek. Most people avoided Hope Creek. It was known as a dangerous place. A town controlled by a violent motorcycle gang. The sheriff there was weak and the people were afraid to speak. But fear did not stop Ryan. Hope Creek was exactly where he needed to be. As the sun began to set, Ryan arrived at a small gas station at the edge of town. The building was old and the paint was peeling. An American flag waved slowly in the hot wind. Ryan stepped out of his truck and walked inside. Behind the counter stood an old man with tired eyes. His name was Kirby Miles. "You're not from around here," Kirby said carefully. "No," Ryan replied. looking for a place to stay. Kirby hesitated. There's only one motel, he said. Just down the road. You sure you want to stay in Hope Creek? Ryan looked at him calmly. I'll be fine. Kirby sighed. Suit yourself. Ryan nodded and walked back to his truck. The motel was small and quiet. Only a few rooms with flickering lights and a broken sign. Inside the office sat Daisy Monroe, a young woman with kind eyes. She looked surprised to see a guest. Welcome, she said. We don't get many visitors. Ryan signed the guest book and paid for the room. You should be careful here, Daisy warned softly. This town isn't safe. Ryan gave a short smile. I know. As Ryan walked to his room, Daisy watched him through the window. Something about him felt different. Strong. Dangerous. But also broken. Inside the room, Ryan sat on the bed and stared at the wall. His hands slowly clenched into fists. Dale Cooper was dead. But the man truly responsible for his family's murder was still alive. And he was waiting in Hope Creek. Ryan lay back and closed his eyes. Tomorrow the real hunt would begin. The kitchen was almost dark. Only a few lights above the counters were still on. Shadows stretched across the floor. The restaurant was quiet now. No music. No voices. Just the low sound of the refrigerator and the air conditioner. Elena stood still. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands felt cold and numb. She tried to focus on the sink in front of her, but her thoughts would not slow down. Richard was still talking. You think you are special, he said. You're just a chef. I can fire you tomorrow. Elena did not answer. She swallowed hard. Her chest felt tight as if something heavy was pressing on it. She felt the familiar warning signs. Her mind was slipping. I built this place, Richard continued. People come because of my name, my money. Elena finally turned to face him. That's not true, she said. They come for the food. Richard shook his head and smiled in a cruel way. You are delusional. That word again. Delusional. Elena felt dizzy. The room seemed to tilt slightly. The sounds around her became strange and distant. She could hear her own breathing too loudly. In her mind, thoughts crashed into each other. She had worked for years to control moments like this. She knew she needed space. She needed silence. Please, she said quietly. Leave. We can talk tomorrow. Richard stepped closer instead. No. We talk now. He pointed a finger at her. You crossed a line tonight. And you will apologize. Elena backed away. Her leg hit a metal table behind her. The cold touch shocked her. Don't come closer, she said. Richard rolled his eyes. Stop acting crazy. That was when something inside Elena snapped. Her vision blurred. The kitchen lights felt painfully bright. Her thoughts split into fragments. Fear mixed with anger. Old memories pushed into her mind. Moments of being trapped. Moments of being powerless. She felt small. Cornered. Richard raised his voice. Look at you. You're losing control. Elena's body reacted before her mind could stop it. She reached out with both hands and pushed him. It was not a strong push. Not meant to hurt. It was sudden and desperate. A reaction, not a decision. Richard stumbled backward. No, Elena whispered. But it was too late. Richard lost his balance. His heels slipped on the smooth kitchen floor. His arms flailed as he tried to grab something. His body fell hard. There was a loud, sharp sound. His head hit the corner of a stainless steel counter. Then silence. Richard lay on the floor. His body was still. His eyes were open but empty. A thin line of blood slowly spread beneath his head. Elena froze. For a moment she did not move. She did not breathe. The world felt unreal, like a bad dream. She waited for him to stand up, to shout, to insult her again. But he didn't move. Elena, she whispered. No answer. She stepped closer, her legs shaking. She knelt beside him. Her fingers hovered over his neck, afraid to touch him. Finally, she felt for a pulse. There was nothing. Her heart dropped. "No," she said. "No, no, no." Her breathing became fast and shallow. Panic flooded her body. Her hands trembled. Her mind screamed at her to run, to hide, to escape. She stood up and backed away, almost slipping herself. She looked around the kitchen. Everything looked the same. Clean, orderly, silent. But nothing was the same. "I didn't mean to," she said out loud. "It was an accident." Her voice echoed in the empty space. She imagined police lights, sirens, handcuffs, prison walls, her name in the news, her life destroyed. Her thoughts raced. "They will never believe you. You are unstable. You will lose everything." Elena pressed her hands against her head. "Stop," she whispered. "Please stop." She looked down at Richard's body again. The blood was darker now. The smell of metal filled the air. She felt sick. Her mind began to split. One part of her screamed in fear. Another part became cold and focused. Clean it. Fix it. Control it. The kitchen was her world. Problems here had solutions. She dragged Richard's body away from the counter. It was harder than she expected. He was heavy. Her arms burned with effort. Her breath came out in short gasps. She locked the kitchen door. "No one can see," she said to herself. She cleaned the blood from the floor with shaking hands. She used sanitizer, bleach, water. She worked fast but carefully. Each movement felt mechanical, like she was watching herself from far away. Time passed without meaning. When the floor was clean, she stood there, staring at the body. "What do I do?" she whispered. Her phone was in her pocket. She thought about calling the police. Just one call. One word. But her hand would not move. Fear wrapped around her like a cage. Her thoughts twisted into something dark and desperate. The voices in her head grew louder, more convincing. If he disappears, the problem disappears. No body. No crime. Elena's stomach turned. She knew the thought was wrong. Horrible. Unthinkable. But it stayed. She looked at the knives. At the freezer. At the tools she used every day. Her breathing slowed. The fear did not leave, but it changed shape. It became determination. Survival. "I have no choice," she said quietly. She did not cry. She did not scream. She just started to work. And in that moment, Elena Moore crossed a line she would never be able to return from. Elena did not sleep that night. The kitchen clock showed 3 in the morning, then 4. Time felt broken. Her body moved, but her mind felt far away, like it was watching from a dark corner. Richard's body lay hidden behind the cold metal doors of the freezer. Wrapped. Still. Silent. Elena leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. Her hands smelled of soap and metal. No matter how much she washed them, the feeling did not go away. "This is not real," she whispered. But it was real. Her thoughts came in waves. Fear rose first. Then shame. Then a deep, sharp panic that made it hard to breathe. She imagined his face again. The empty eyes. The sound of his head hitting the counter. She covered her ears. "Stop," she said to herself. But her mind would not stop. When the sun finally rose, pale light entered the kitchen through the small back window. Elena stood up straight. She wiped her face. She looked at her reflection in the steel surface of the fridge. Her face looked calm. Too calm. She knew this feeling. It was the cold part of her mind taking control. The part that appeared when things became unbearable. She told herself she had to think clearly. Richard was gone. People would notice soon. Questions would come. The restaurant could not close suddenly. She could not disappear. She needed a plan. Elena opened the freezer slowly. Cold air rushed out. She looked inside and quickly closed the door again. Her stomach twisted, but she did not vomit. "This is a kitchen," she said. "I know kitchens." Her mind searched for logic. For order. Food waste was tracked. Deliveries were logged. Trash was taken out every night. something strange appeared, people would talk. She understood something terrible. Keeping the body whole was impossible. The thought made her knees weak. She sat down on a stool and stared at the floor. No, she said. No, no, no. But the idea stayed. Her illness did not create the thought, but it made it easier to accept. Her sense of right and wrong felt distant, like a memory from another life. By noon, the staff began to arrive. Elena locked herself in her office and told them she was preparing a special menu alone. Her voice was calm, professional. No one questioned her. They never did. Hours passed. Elena worked behind closed doors. She did not think of Richard as a person anymore. Her mind turned him into a problem, a task, something to be solved. She used her skills with precision. Her movements were careful and controlled. She avoided looking too closely. She avoided thinking. She kept telling herself one thing: survive. By evening, everything was hidden, cleaned, sealed, stored. The kitchen looked normal again. Elena took a long shower in the staff bathroom. The water ran hot. Her skin turned red. She scrubbed until it hurt. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her eyes looked empty. That night, she created a new menu. A tasting menu. Limited. Exclusive. She chose strong spices, heavy sauces, complex flavors. She told herself it was to hide everything, to erase all traces. The next day, the restaurant opened as usual. Customers filled the tables. Laughter returned. Glasses clinked. Music played softly again. Elena stood in the kitchen giving orders. Her voice was steady. Her posture perfect. No one noticed anything strange. The first plate went out. Then the second. Elena watched from the pass as the servers delivered the food. She held her breath without realizing it. A moment passed. Then another. Nothing happened. The plates came back empty. "This is amazing," a server said. "Table 7 wants to thank you personally." Elena nodded. Her heart beat slowly now. Too slowly. She felt something dangerous rise inside her. Not pleasure. Not pride. Relief. That night, reviews appeared online. People praised the bold flavors. They called the menu dark, emotional, unforgettable. Elena read the words on her phone in silence. She did not feel happy. She felt numb. Days passed. Then weeks. Richard's absence was explained as a business trip. Elena repeated the story calmly whenever someone asked. Her voice never shook. Inside, her mental state worsened. She slept little. When she did sleep, she dreamed of knives and metal sounds. She woke up sweating, her heart racing. Sometimes she thought she smelled blood even when nothing was there. She became more controlling in the kitchen. More aggressive. She checked the freezer often, making sure everything stayed hidden. She labeled packages carefully. She pushed them behind other boxes. Frozen fish. Imported meat. No one looked too closely. She avoided the freezer herself whenever she could. But the secret lived with her. In every dish. In every service. She stopped eating meat. Her junior chefs noticed she was thinner. Paler. "Are you okay, chef?" one of them asked. "I'm fine," Elena replied quickly. "Focus on your station." The restaurant became more popular than ever. The forbidden menu sold out every night. Elena gained praise and attention, but it felt unreal. Success tasted bitter. One night, Elena stood alone in the kitchen after closing. She opened the freezer and stared inside for a long time. "I had no choice," she whispered. The freezer hummed in response. She closed the door and leaned against it, her body shaking slightly. She knew this could not last forever. Secrets always rot. And somewhere in the cold darkness, the truth waited patiently to be found. The cleaning shift started after midnight. Most people never noticed the night workers. They came when the lights were low and the restaurant was quiet. They cleaned what others left behind. Floors, trash bins, grease traps. They worked fast and stayed invisible. One of them was Maria Lopez. Maria had worked as a cleaning service employee for many years. She was careful and observant. She noticed details others ignored. A stain that did not belong. A smell that felt wrong. That night, she was assigned to clean the kitchen at La Mero. At first, everything looked normal. The counters were clean. The sinks were empty. The knives were already stored. The kitchen looked perfect, almost too perfect. Maria pushed her cart slowly across the floor. Her shoes made soft sounds against the tiles. She started with the trash area, tying bags and placing them near the back door. Then she smelled something. It was faint at first. A sour, heavy odor. Not the normal smell of old food. Not spoiled vegetables or fish. This smell was deeper. Maria stopped and sniffed the air. "That's strange," she muttered. She followed the smell toward the storage area. The closer she got, the stronger it became. It made her stomach tighten. The freezer stood at the far end of the kitchen. A large industrial unit. It was always cold, always loud. But tonight something felt different. Maria leaned closer. The smell came from there. "That's not right," she said quietly. She hesitated. Cleaning staff were not supposed to open sealed storage without permission. But the smell worried her. If something was rotting, it could be a health issue. She pulled on gloves and reached for the freezer handle. Cold air rushed out as she opened the door. The smell hit her immediately. Maria gagged and stepped back. Her eyes watered. The odor was strong and unbearable. "Oh God," she whispered. She covered her nose and leaned in again. Inside the freezer were many boxes and sealed packages. Most were labeled clearly. Fish, beef, poultry. But at the back, behind other items, she saw something different. A plastic bag. It was not labeled. The bag was thick and tightly wrapped. Dark stains showed through the plastic. Maria's hands began to shake. She did not want to touch it. Every part of her body told her to close the door and walk away. But curiosity and fear pushed her forward. She moved a box aside and pulled the bag out slightly. Something hard shifted inside. A shape appeared under the plastic. Round. Smooth. Her breath caught in her throat. "No," she said softly. She opened the bag just a little. Inside she saw bone. Not small bones like chicken or fish. Large bones. And then she saw it. A piece shaped like part of a human skull. Maria screamed and dropped the bag. She stumbled backward and fell onto the floor. Her heart raced wildly. Her hands felt numb. "This can't be real," she said over and over. She scrambled to her feet and slammed the freezer door shut. Her chest burned as she tried to breathe. Her mind raced with fear. Someone is dead. This is a crime. I'm in danger. Maria grabbed her phone with shaking fingers. She stepped outside through the back door into the cool night air. She leaned against the wall and tried to calm herself. After a moment, she dialed the police. "This is an emergency," she said when someone answered. "I work cleaning a restaurant. I found bones. Human bones. In the freezer." The police took her statement seriously. They asked for the restaurant name, the address, details. Maria answered everything carefully. Within hours, the information reached the Florida Police Department. Detectives were assigned to the case. But they did not rush in with lights and sirens. They chose silence. The restaurant was popular. Public panic could destroy evidence. The detectives decided to begin a quiet investigation. The next day, 2 officers visited Maria. She showed them photos she had secretly taken before closing the freezer. The images were clear enough. Human bone. That was enough to begin. The police contacted health inspectors and reviewed missing person reports. One name appeared again and again. Richard Hale, the owner of La Mero. He had not been seen for weeks. No official report had been filed yet, but business partners had started asking questions. The detectives made a decision. They would watch. They sent officers undercover. One posed as a food supplier. Another as a maintenance worker. They entered the restaurant quietly, observing everything. They watched the staff. They watched the head chef. Elena Moore. She was calm, professional, polite, too calm. She smiled when she spoke. She gave orders with precision, but her eyes were tired, always alert, always watching. The investigators noted everything. The freezer was checked again later, secretly. The bag was gone. Someone had moved it. That made the case urgent. They began collecting evidence slowly. Trash records, delivery logs, security camera backups, employee schedules. Each piece alone meant nothing. Together they started to form a pattern. The police also interviewed the cleaning staff. Maria's statement stayed consistent. Her fear felt real. The investigation stayed hidden from the public. Inside the restaurant, life continued. But something had changed. Elena felt it. She noticed strangers watching the kitchen, asking questions, standing too long near storage areas. Her hands shook more often now. She checked the freezer every night. The smell was gone, but the fear was stronger than ever. She did not know it yet, but the freezer had already spoken, and the truth had begun its slow, unstoppable journey to the surface. The investigation continued quietly. From the outside, La Mero still looked perfect. The lights were warm. The tables were full every night. Customers laughed and praised the food. Online reviews kept coming, full of admiration. No one knew what was happening behind the scenes. The police decided to move slowly. They did not want to alert the staff. Panic could destroy evidence. So they watched, listened, and waited. 2 detectives led the case. Detective Aaron Cole and Detective Linda Harris. They were experienced and patient. They knew that the truth often revealed itself through small details. They sent undercover officers into the restaurant. One officer pretended to be a seafood supplier. He came in early mornings with boxes of fish and shellfish. He watched how the kitchen worked, who gave orders, who checked deliveries. Another officer posed as a temporary maintenance worker. He fixed lights, checked pipes, and stayed close to storage areas. He listened to conversations. He observed behavior. Every visit was carefully planned. The detectives noticed something quickly. Elena Moore controlled everything. She checked all deliveries herself. She signed every form. She supervised storage personally. No one touched the freezer without her permission. That was not normal. Most head chefs trusted their team. Elena did not. She was always watching. The detectives also noticed her behavior. She rarely left the kitchen. She did not laugh. She barely rested. Her movements were sharp and precise, but her hands sometimes trembled. She avoided certain questions. When the undercover supplier asked about the previous owner, Elena answered calmly. "Mr. Hale is away on business," she said. "He trusts me to manage things." Her voice did not shake, but her eyes flickered for just a moment. The police also began interviewing the staff one by one, not as suspects, just routine questions. The servers said Elena was strict but fair. The cooks said she demanded perfection. No one suspected her of violence. "He would never hurt anyone," one junior chef said. "She lives for this place." The cleaning staff interviews were more tense. Maria repeated her story carefully. She described the smell, the bones, the shape of the skull. She did not exaggerate. Forensic experts examined the photos. They confirmed the bone structure was human. That changed everything. The detectives began linking the evidence to Richard Hale's disappearance. They reviewed his phone records. His last known location was the restaurant. His car was still parked in a private garage near his apartment. His passport had not been used. It looked less like a trip, and more like vanishing. Still, they had no body, no direct proof, no crime scene. They needed more. So they started collecting physical evidence. Trash disposal records showed unusual patterns. Certain nights, waste was heavier than normal. Other nights, almost nothing was thrown away. Freezer inventory logs showed gaps. Items listed but never reordered. Labels rewritten. Security cameras had missing footage. Some files were deleted. Others were corrupted. That was suspicious. The detectives brought in a digital expert. He worked quietly, recovering fragments of old footage from the system. Meanwhile, Elena felt the pressure growing. She noticed unfamiliar faces more often. People she did not recognize asking simple questions. How long has that freezer been here? Do you keep inventory records digitally or on paper? Each question felt like a knife against her skin. Her paranoia grew. She checked locks twice, then 3 times. She stopped trusting her own staff. She snapped at small mistakes. "Focus," she shouted one night. "This is not a game." Her junior chef, Mark, took the worst of it. Mark was young and nervous. He worked late shifts. He often cleaned after service. He asked questions Elena did not like. "Chef, should I label this? Chef, do we still use that freezer section?" Elena started to see him as a threat. Her mind twisted facts. Every glance felt suspicious. Every movement felt dangerous. She began planting ideas. Casual comments. Quiet suggestions. "Mark works very late," she said once to a server. "He's alone in the kitchen a lot," she told another cook. The word spread slowly. The police noticed. They saw how Elena redirected attention without seeming obvious. How her story stayed consistent. How she avoided blame. For a moment, the detectives wondered if they were wrong. Mark became nervous too. He noticed the questioning. He felt eyes on him. One night, police asked him to come in for a formal interview. He was terrified. "I didn't do anything," he said again and again. "I just cook." But evidence started pointing his way. His fingerprints were found on freezer boxes. His access card was used late at night. He had no strong alibi for certain hours. He became the main suspect. Elena watched this unfold in silence. A part of her felt relief. Another part felt sick. She told herself it was necessary. Survival demanded sacrifice. The voices in her head agreed. The investigation slowed. The police focused on Mark. Media rumors began quietly. A young chef. Late nights. Access to the kitchen. Elena walked free. For now. But Detective Harris was not convinced. Something felt wrong. Mark did not fit the psychological profile. He was too panicked. Too confused. His story did not feel controlled. Elena's did. Harris began watching Elena more closely. Studying her reactions. Her timing. Her silence. She noticed something important. Whenever the freezer was mentioned, Elena's breathing changed. Just slightly. The investigation was not over. It was only changing direction. And the truth, buried deep under layers of lies and fear, was still waiting to be uncovered. Mark sat alone in the small interview room. The walls were gray. The light above him was too bright. His hands rested on the table, shaking slightly. He had been there for hours. Detective Cole sat across from him. Detective Harris stood near the wall, watching quietly. "Mark," Cole said calmly, "we just want the truth." "I already told you everything," Mark replied. His voice cracked. "I didn't do anything wrong." Mark was a junior chef. He was young, hardworking, and nervous by nature. He had never been in trouble before. Now his whole world felt like it was collapsing. The detective showed him photos. Freezer logs. Security access records. "These are your fingerprints," Cole said. "This is your key card. You were here late many nights." Mark nodded quickly. "Yes, but I work late. Chef Elena asks me to clean. To organize storage. That's my job." Harris stepped forward. "Did you ever see Richard Hale after those late shifts?" Mark swallowed. "No, I never saw him. I swear." His fear felt real. His confusion felt honest. Still, the evidence pointed toward him. Outside the room, Elena Moore waited in her office. She sat very still. Her face was calm, but her thoughts were racing. They took him in. "They believe it. You're safe." She told herself this again and again. 4 days, Mark remained the main suspect. Rumors spread quietly among staff. Some avoided him. Others whispered. The restaurant felt different now. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Elena watched everything closely. She spoke carefully. She showed concern. It's terrible, she told the detectives. I trusted him. Her performance was perfect. But inside she was breaking. Her sleep was gone. When she closed her eyes, she saw Richard falling again. She heard the sound of bone hitting metal. She woke up gasping for air. She increased her medication without telling anyone. Sometimes it helped. Sometimes it made her feel numb and distant. The voices in her head became stronger. You did what you had to do. He would have destroyed you. This is survival. She believed them. But Detective Harris was not convinced. Something about Elena felt wrong. Harris reviewed all interviews again. She watched recordings closely. She studied body language, tone, timing. Mark was messy, emotional, inconsistent. Elena was controlled, too controlled. Harris began digging deeper. She requested Elena's background records, employment history, medical history where legally accessible. She found something important. Elena had a long history of psychological treatment, severe stress disorder, dissociative episodes, hospital stays that Elena never mentioned. This did not make her guilty, but it made her capable. Harris also reviewed the recovered security footage again. The digital expert had restored a few more seconds from an old file. It showed 2 figures in the kitchen late at night. One was clearly Richard. The other wore a chef's coat. The face was unclear, but the height, the posture, it looked like Elena. Harris felt her pulse quicken. She ordered a quiet forensic recheck of the knives. This time, they tested a blade Elena always kept locked in her personal drawer. The results came back days later. DNA. Richard Hale's DNA. The case changed instantly. The detectives realized what had happened. Mark had been a shield, a distraction. Elena had guided them there without ever pointing directly. That was the most dangerous kind of suspect. The police moved fast but quietly. They did not want Elena to run. They invited her in for another interview. Elena walked into the station calmly. Her back was straight, her face unreadable. She sat down across from Harris. Thank you for coming, Harris said. Of course, Elena replied. I want to help. Harris placed the knife photo on the table. Do you recognize this? She asked. Elena's eyes flickered. It's mine, she said. A chef's tool. And this DNA? Harris continued. It belongs to Richard Hale. Silence filled the room. Elena's breathing slowed. Her hands clenched under the table. That's impossible, she said. Harris leaned closer. We know about the freezer, the bones, the footage, and your medical history. Elena's control began to crack. The voices screamed. What? Run. Fight. She stood up suddenly. I didn't mean to kill him, she shouted. It was an accident. The room froze. The words hung in the air. Elena collapsed into the chair. Her face twisted in pain. Tears filled her eyes for the first time. He pushed me, she cried. He threatened me. I was scared. She covered her face with her hands. Her body shook. The confession spilled out in broken sentences. The push, the fall, the panic, the terrible choices that followed. The detectives listened in silence. When she finished, Elena looked empty. I just wanted to survive, she whispered. She was arrested that night. Mark was released the next morning. Charges dropped. His name cleared. The restaurant closed within days. Elena Moore was charged with murder and abuse of a corpse. The trial later shocked the public. The story spread across the country. A brilliant chef, a hidden illness, a horrifying secret. In the end, the truth destroyed the lie, and the wrong suspect was finally free. The courtroom was full. People filled every seat. Reporters sat in the back with notebooks and cameras. The air felt heavy as if everyone was holding their breath. Elena Moore sat at the defense table. She wore a plain gray uniform. Her hair was tied back. Her face looked pale and tired. She did not look like the famous chef anymore. Across the room, Mark sat with his lawyer. He looked thinner but calmer. His eyes stayed on the floor. He did not want to look at Elena. The trial began quietly. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Then everyone sat again. The prosecutor stood first. He spoke slowly and clearly. He told the story from the beginning. He talked about the argument in the kitchen. He talked about the push. He talked about Richard Hale's death. He showed photos of the freezer. He showed the recovered video footage. He explained the DNA evidence found on Elena's knife. Each piece of evidence felt like another heavy stone placed on Elena's chest. Elena listened without moving. Her lawyer tried to defend her. He spoke about her mental illness. He spoke about stress. He spoke about fear and panic. She did not plan to kill anyone, he said. This was an accident followed by a mental breakdown. The jury listened carefully. Doctors were called to speak. Psychiatrists explained Elena's condition. They described her dissociative episodes. Her difficulty controlling fear under extreme pressure. She knew right from wrong, one doctor said. But her ability to make healthy decisions was severely damaged at that moment. That sentence stayed in the room for a long time. Mark was called to testify. He walked to the stand slowly. His voice shook at first but then grew stronger. I trusted her, he said. She was my mentor. I thought she cared about us. He paused. When I was accused, she said nothing. Elena lowered her head. The jury also heard from Maria, the cleaning worker. She described the smell, the freezer, the bones. Her voice trembled as she spoke. I will never forget that night, she said. I still smell it in my dreams. Finally, Elena was called to speak. She stood up slowly and walked to the stand. Her hands were shaking. She looked at the jury, then at the judge. Then she spoke. I am not asking for forgiveness, she said quietly. I know what I did was wrong. Her voice was calm but empty. I was afraid. I felt trapped. My mind broke that night. She took a deep breath. I pushed him because I wanted him to leave me alone. I never wanted him to die. Tears filled her eyes. After that, I was lost. I made terrible choices. I hurt people who trusted me. She looked briefly at Mark. I am sorry. The courtroom was silent. After weeks of testimony, the trial ended. The jury left to make their decision. Hours passed. When they returned, everyone stood again. The judge asked for the verdict. Guilty, the jury foreman said. Guilty of murder. Guilty of abuse of a corpse. Guilty of obstruction of justice. Elena did not cry. She simply closed her eyes. The judge spoke firmly. Your actions were horrific, he said. But your mental condition cannot be ignored. He sentenced Elena to life in prison with mandatory psychiatric treatment. The gavel struck the table. It was over. Elena was taken away in handcuffs. As she walked out, she looked back at the courtroom one last time. No one looked back at her. The restaurant La Mero closed forever. The building was sold. The sign was taken down. People stopped talking about the food. They talked about the crime. Mark left Florida. He found work in a small restaurant in another state. He cooked quietly now. He trusted slowly. But he was free. Maria continued working, but she refused night shifts. She kept her phone close. She locked her doors every night. Some scars never faded. As for Elena, prison life was silent and strict. Days passed slowly. She attended therapy sessions. She took medication under supervision. Sometimes she dreamed of the kitchen. She dreamed of knives lined up perfectly, of sauces simmering gently, of control. Then she woke up to metal bars and concrete walls. In her final moments of reflection, Elena understood something painful. Her greatest talent had also been her hiding place. The kitchen had given her power, and it had taken everything away. The story ended not with screams or fire, but with silence. A silence that followed the truth,